Welcome back to Crystal Clear! I'm Fox, and with each passing day, we get closer and closer to the end of the Steven Universe television series. Again, I doubt that future is going to be more than 20 episodes, maybe the Steven Universe standard 26, but again, it seems as if all Cartoon Network series have had reduced episode orders across the board, each full production season now being 20 11-minute episodes. I personally am still fully expecting Steven Universe to conclude around Memorial Day, as Steven Universe has not been a stranger to Memorial Day events. Anime will also see the launch of HBO Max, which is confirmed to host Cartoon Network properties. I don't know about you guys, but if I was planning an up-and-coming streaming service, I would definitely want all the heavy hitters in different mediums, including animation. There is no way that people running HBO Max are not aware that Steven Universe has a huge adult following, and the best way to get people to subscribe to your service that caters to all demographics would be to have the complete Steven Universe trilogy available at launch, if not shortly after launch. The original Steven Universe, Steven Universe the movie, and all of Steven Universe Future. Thinking that in 4 months' time the Steven Universe series could be over is wild, but we're not here to mourn. We're here to talk about what's after Steven Universe Future. What adventures await for Steven and the Crystal Gems? Rebecca Sugar stated during her Barnes & Noble signings in the fall of 2019 that if Future is the last animated series, it still wouldn't be her last time working with these characters because she cares about them way too much. And I believe the many routes Steven Universe can continue have already been presented to us in plain sight. So today, I just want to run through the possibilities and throw some ideas out there of what to expect after the final episode airs on television. With all that said, let's dive in. Running it back to Sugar's comments during the Barnes & Noble signings, after Sugar made clear that she would want there to be something after the TV series, the first and only thing she mentioned were comics. As comics seem to be both her first love and her most passionate preferred medium of art. With such a tremendous love for comics and successful comic book lines already going on, it makes sense that Steven Universe will follow the footsteps of other Cartoon Network series, with comic book continuations coming out after the series conclude. Two big examples of Cartoon Network adaptations are Samurai Jack and Adventure Time, the latter having 2 or 3 comic book lines after Come Along With Me aired. Comics also make perfect sense because they won't be as restricted as the television series with its standards and practices. Steven Universe, despite its TV PG rating, has had a huge fight for LGBT representation, and I imagine other hard-hitting themes, as they don't have to deal with just American standards and practices, but censorship from all over the world. While I'm sure the comics just can't cut loose willy-nilly, I do think Sugar will be able to pull off more straightforward representation, not just between gems, but with even more human characters. Steven Universe already isn't a stranger to comics. We've had comics for years, pretty much since the show as began, but having canon after the television series comics by Rebecca Sugar would be in a completely different ballgame. With the release of the hiatuses, it really wouldn't be that much of a struggle getting what's essentially a brand new episode every month, but there's an extra layer of comfort knowing that the comics could explore whatever and wherever, and that if we get anything new, it's something new that Steven and the Gems have actually experienced, something that we know actually left an impact. While the comics do a fantastic job of delivering entertaining stories right now, it is kind of disheartening that we never see any of it in the actual television show, not even acknowledged. However, with no more show left, no more need to fill in the blanks, we're only able to go even deeper into the timeline. And while some elements won't be as cool, like brand new fusions, as they would likely lack a voice, other elements would be so much cooler, even if it's just something as simple as going to a brand new location. For example, if you translate volleyball into comic form, we likely could have had a much bigger exploration of the reef through multiple panels and pages, not having the constraints of 11 minutes and 30 seconds. While I'm not gonna say we're definitely going to get a comic continuation, I do believe it's something that's, at the very least, in the cards. If an announcement came by San Diego Comic-Con, I absolutely would not be fazed. And I think comics would also allow fans to be satisfied in case Cartoon Network ever wanted to cook up more projects with Steven. As much as I love speculating on what's to come with Steven's future, we need to keep the lights on. So real quick, big thanks to today's sponsor, NordVPN. While surfing the internet, privacy should be the top priority. Anyone can take your data within the blink of an eye, and who knows what they do with it. All it takes is one click for some stranger you don't even know to keep track of your every move. That's terrifying. That's why we have VPNs. A VPN is the easiest way to protect yourself from these breaches and security, and NordVPN offers a wide variety of different locations for you to pop on over and cause your IP address to be hidden from any devious thieves out there who want it. I love to travel, and now at the very least my IP address can take me anywhere in seconds. If you head over to nordvpn.org/theroundtable and use the code TheRoundtable at checkout, you can get a 70% discount on a 3-year plan with 1 month free. I know, that's too good to pass up. This doesn't just apply to you surfing on the computer as well. NordVPN works for your browser, phone, or pretty much any device that has an app store. Again, that's nordvpn.org/theroundtable and using the code TheRoundtable at checkout. But moving on from comics, I think another video game could also be in the pipeline. Unfortunately, I would have to describe Steven Universe's relationship with video games as, rocky. Aside from appearing in The Amazing Brawlhalla and a lackluster, this probably could have been an app Cartoon Network crossover third-party game, Steven Universe has had the Light series as its video game representation. Beginning with Attack the Light on smartphones and tablets, the series evolved into Save the Light, a much larger RPG adventure on the consoles. And recently, the series seemingly became a completed trilogy with Unleash the Light, which unfortunately not only went back to smartphones and tablets, but only Apple devices due to the Apple Arcade. However, I have a suspicion that Apple Arcade is the reason this game is able to exist in the first place, as Save the Light had a not so great launch. I love the game, I think it's great, however I do think it needed more time in the lab, which it eventually got and received through patches, but the initial bugs were just too much for reviewers. I don't know how successful Unleash the Light is, but these games do tell one linear story that all connect to one another and build upon each other in very great ways, in ways that very much feel like Steven Universe, right down to new gems who are fully voiced, and the events of these games being 100% canonical. Yeah, originally I would say they were level 2 canon, yada yada yada, but recently Rebecca Sugar and the Crew-Niverse have seemed pretty comfortable just referring to these games as canon, nothing else, nothing more. But because these stories are canon and provide such impressive, over-the-top world building, I definitely think they'd be a perfect avenue for continuing the story. Unleash the Light finally took us to different gem colonies, something that wasn't properly explored in the show until the episode Why So Blue, but even then the focus there wasn't really the colony itself. But I think it's perfect to explore different locations in video games proper because you're actually able to move around in them, interact with the surroundings, and get an up-close and personal look of how they work. It's an experience that other methods of adaptation just can't quite nail. Not to mention, Unleash the Light did end on a cliffhanger, one that implied the future return of Squaridot, as we saw a vehicle that very much could belong to her, with a heinous cackle that very much sounded like Shelby Rabara. I'm not quite sure what Squaridot has to do, as she was bubbled in Save the Light, so this post-credit scene implies that she was either a part of the Unbubbled and Change Your Mind, or that Steven and the gem set her free afterwards, and that somehow she was able to recover her ship, or a ship similar to her original one, and jet it off into space to plot her revenge. I personally would love a 4th Light game, one that could kind of serve as an epilogue to the Light series, while also following up on the television series proper, and maybe returning it to consoles so we can have all of our beloved characters back, even more fusions and even more playable characters. Please, I'm begging! However, if Steven Universe was to return to the animated realm, something I could really dig that I think is 100% feasible is another movie. Whether if it would be made for television or for streaming. Not only was Steven Universe the movie huge, and definitely warrants the title of a success, because at the very least, it had a cultural influence in all things nerd. Seriously, when it came out, you could not escape Spinel wherever you went. You still pretty much can't depending on where you look, and the movie in itself was advertised as Steven's first movie, a distinction they made on the original website that's now for some reason unavailable, the promotional advertisement for the home release of the movie, and everywhere else in between. I think another Steven Universe movie could improve on the first one, which I have seen valid critiques of, namely that not every song hit it out of the park in terms of relating to the actual story, but now that we've had such a pivotal movie that introduced a new version of Steven and friends, a new version of the world they live in, one that re-established the main character arcs, the next movie wouldn't have to worry about any of that. They can just go all out and introduce something that we could never anticipate. Something that seems unrelated to everything that's come before, but thematically still fits like a glove. It can dabble in even more genres of music, and even different methods of storytelling. I know a lot of fans can have an issue with the Steven perspective, but I definitely think there are ways to utilize it that just haven't been done yet. Mainly because they'd be hard to convey or execute in an 11-minute time frame. The concept of we only know what the main character knows opens up for a world of possibilities. reality. Imagine a more intense whodunit story, just something to chew on. I think out of all things, I would want Steven Universe to continue in the form of movies the most, but I can always root for a little bit of everything because when it comes to my cartoons, I am a very selfish man. But last but not least, I think Steven Universe could simply continue in the form of a miniseries or another brand new series, just like Adventure Time Distant Lands. I do believe Steven Universe Future will be the last series to air on Cartoon Network proper. That to see the show, you either have to watch it on TV or the app. If Steven Universe does have a future in animation, it'll be on HBO Max, and it'll be for the better. After all, it seems to have been working out for Adventure Time, and although those are 4-hour-long specials, they're still, for all intents and purposes, a different series from the original Adventure Time. And I think a great reason for both Adventure Time and Steven continuing on streaming is that Finn and Steven literally wouldn't be aimed for a children's demographic any longer. While having adult characters in children's shows aren't anything new, and it definitely isn't breaking any rules to have a character that's over the age of 17, both Finn and Steven were written from the perspective that they would grow up with the audience. By the end of the original Adventure Time, Finn was 17, and by the end of Steven Universe Future, Steven will likely be 18. Check out my video on Steven's current age if you need to understand why. I imagine Adventure Time Distant Lands will take place even farther in the future than the original series, so both Finn and Steven are going to be full-grown adults. Thus, the storytelling could evolve with them. I don't think there's any reason for any original animation on HBO Max to still follow a certain demographic. After all, they may want to upkeep that prestigious branding that HBO shows carry. So I think it's possible that a future Steven Universe series could finally be as mature as it wants to be. Not saying there'd be F-bombs thrown everywhere, over-the-top violent deaths, or I don't know, Steven getting high in the Dandai. But much for the reasons I just gave for the comics, there'd be much less of a reason to hold back, especially on streaming. Fans are always going to want more. I think when Cartoon Network and Rebecca Sugar decided to end Steven Universe, the limitless potential of HBO Max was something that was not even on the table. And now it's kind of too late to say, yeah, let's make more of Future. Let's make more of this show. Because just like the original Steven Universe, Future has a certain story to tell and is not in a position where, after you see how it ends, it'd be suitable to tell more of that story. When Future's over, that version of the show will be done. What could come next is yet another entirely new version. Something that would have to separate itself from both those series, and whether that be a longer runtime, even more intense and diverse storytelling tales of growing up, or even going above and beyond to get into the animation industry. There's a lot of potential in the direction Steven Universe could go, and I could totally see Cartoon Network of all studios being the company that says, sure, let's go for it. Let's make a sequel to a cartoon that's no longer aimed at a children's demographic. They did it with Samurai Jack. I can see them doing it with Future too, but I do think that's a long ways away. After all, Distant Lands is coming about 2 years after the original series ended, so let's give Steven Universe 2 or 3 years before it makes a grand animated return, if at all. But as always, these are just my thoughts, and I want to hear yours. What do you think? Out of all the routes I presented today, which one would you want Steven Universe as a franchise to take? Comics, video games, another movie, or a new streaming series? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, or tweet your thoughts at Roundtable Vids. And for more of my own thoughts, you can find me at OstricVox. We're also on Instagram. Special thanks to JANKYBONES for creating an awesome thumbnail. For more of their amazing art, you can find them on Tumblr at JANKYBONES, Twitter and Instagram at BoneJanky, and subscribe to their YouTube channel. Link in the description. Help the Roundtable grow by either becoming a member of this channel or supporting us over at Patreon. Link in the description. If you enjoyed this video, please throw it a like and subscribe to the Roundtable for more great cartoon content. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have an awesome day. OstricVox signing out.